Hello and welcome back to the Guns and Glory Show. It is August 25th, 2025. Got an Arrows 2000mm SZD 54. I don't know what the SZD does, but we're going to make an Arrows 2000mm FPV. It's made in China. Not cool, guys. I thought this was an American company. Let's help out your fellow Americans and build a factory here. And get around the tariffs too, which are a great idea. I gotta explain that in another video, but this is not the time and place for it. Come on, get out of there. Got a 78-inch wingspan one you're looking at. It's one of those things. 43 inches long. About 1,130 grams. Got a 3136 KV 1000 motor. That's not kilovolt. I'll have to look that up again. 30 MPSC. Got 9 gram servos, 6 of them. Doesn't come with a radio, don't need one. I've got the Frisky, better known as First Sky or Free Sky. Center of gravity 45 to 60 millimeters from the leading edge. After the Prodigy, I'm wondering about that. The prop size, well, 12. The 6.2 blade, it's 12 inch. Recommended battery, the 3S, 13 to 2200 milliamp hours. I'm going to save this as well. Still got Prodigy box too. I've been having such trouble with getting an airplane into the air. I figured, you know, I'm going to buy one that's proven. The Titan would have worked if I would have been more diligent. The fact of the matter is I knew it was cracked and shouldn't have flown it, and it did anyway. Otherwise, that would have probably been fine. However, I wanted something bigger with a big, huge wing. And when I was 14, I won a scholarship to learn how to fly sailplanes. And that's basically what this thing is, except I don't know why they call it a sailplane. I don't see a sail here. I think it was a sailboat. It's got a mast and it's got this canvas thing that billows in the air. Now, a hang glider, that's a sailplane. This, not so much. Alright, let's see. Let's pop this fuselage out of here. And since I'm going to FPV this, I've got to figure out how to redesign it because I don't want all the stuff up here and then a huge tail weight. And I would like a steerable nose wheel. I've got landing gear coming tomorrow because this thing isn't going to take off from the runway with that huge prop on it. It'll land just fine on these wheels, which are fantastic. It just looks so much like the planes that I used to fly. It just takes me back. It's really, really great. However, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna FPV this, and weight and balance is always a major concern. Now, RC sailors did say that this thing can pop back out, and the Prodigy was the same way. So we're gonna glue that there. I like the idea of having these wings so you can get them off because they're huge. I don't really need that anyway. Yeah. I just think mainly my problem with these things is not getting a big enough airplane with a large enough wingspan. Because you're going to FPV this thing, it's going to add about 12 ounces. If you had like just the 04 and not the 04 Pro, that goes to the elevator. You could save a little weight there. Alright, let's get the stuff under control and try not to step on the dog toy. Oh, I forgot the wingtips. They're camouflaged in there, right? think it was Druddy RC painted his yellow. I thought that was a nice touch. I'd do that, but I don't have any yellow paint. I might have to do that later. One thing I might do, depending on if it wrecks that canopy or battery hatch. That's not it. It's a canopy. I got this clear plastic, and I think I'm going to build a wooden frame for it and set it inside of the toaster oven, probably this way. That way I can pull it out and then stretch it over this thing and hopefully make a canopy for it. The camera may sit too high in there to do that. If that's the case, I'll have to make a different type of canopy, but if this thing makes it to the winter time, I'm gonna need that because I don't like the snow getting into the airplane. In the summertime, I don't mind flying around in the open cockpit. The first thing I want to do is to attach the horizontal stabilizer, and as I said before, I'm going to put a little glue on this thing. And this is that 10 to 15 second stuff. So you got a little bit to work with it. And that should be plenty. Put it in that little Picatinny rail. And just slide that right in there. Make sure it seats. Now, the reason I did that is because on the Prodigy, this thing popped back after bouncing a little bit, and it forced the elevator down, which is good. Keeps you from taking off with it loose. But I'd rather not have that happen. Well, I guess sitting here looking at it, I might as well take care of the servo and the clevis. Put that in the top hole. I can't see it, so I didn't put my glasses on. So what we're going to do is zero that elevator with the horizontal stabilizer and thread that in until the pin lines up with the hole. Once you get that lined up where you want it, just open it up and pop that pin through the hole and give it a good squeeze. There, it'll pop. Now there's this little piece of fuel line that's there to keep that from coming off of there. As tempting as it would be to glue these wingtips in, I think I'm just going to use some magic tape. I guess you put that in there and then pull it backwards. Yeah, and it pops it in there. Yeah, I definitely just don't want to leave those loose, but I don't want to glue them in because if something breaks, it'll be really harder to fix it if you glued it there. And that stuff, you're never going to notice it anyway. So we'll put a little piece of that on there, right just on the plastic part. I don't even need to mess with the foam. In fact, I'm going to grab some scissors and trim that just a bit. You just need a little bit. We'll take the piece without the fingerprints on it and just stick it there. There. Just like a little sticker. I'll probably keep the paint scheme they've got on this thing. It's pretty clever. I've got room for the FAA numbers right here. And I'm going to clean it up a little bit more with some duct tape. Their little tape job stopped short of where it's going to enter the fuselage over here. I don't know what they did that for, so we're going to clean that up a little bit. I like nice sharp edges on that tape. Little details like that make the thing look better. I don't want to take it all the way in. Catches the edge of it, now peel it off that way. And we'll put a couple of pieces over these two servos. Just clean that up a little bit more. It makes, whoops, I'll cut that in a few minutes. I think it makes the airplane look nicer. Just clean it up a little bit. It's worth a couple of minutes. This is a very fast build anyway, and if I built it in 3 minutes like it says in the instructions, I'd get bored with it. So, besides, we're going to do a lot of, I'm going to set that back a little farther. We're going to do a lot more custom work with this one. I'm not sure how I'm going to wire the ailerons and the flaps though, because if I just use a Y cable, you can get ailerons or flaps, or if you hook it up like I did here, these will both operate the same. However, I don't know if I want to do that. I may just operate these as an aileron and these as a flap, if I can make this also a spoiler. I like spoilers, and this one's going to want to float. Okay, it's time to put the wings on it. It comes with these little metal spar reinforcement bars. I think it's a good idea to put a little bit of blue thread locker in this. Doesn't take a whole lot. Oh geez. Put half a bottle in there. Where's that one? Ooh. There it is. Okay. Got enough to do about 6 of those doing that. Just thread it in. Oops. Of course, screw it up. I'm trying to film it. And it's got a little hole, just like on the propeller hub. Just give it a little twist. Tighten it up. Helps to establish dihedral. Give it strength when it's under a load. There we go. Now there's a little hole in the fuselage right here to feed the wires for the servos for each of the wings. Now I don't usually care too much for a Y cable because it's very limiting. If you've got a good transmitter, you can do a lot more. That's kind of tight. There you go. You can do a lot more with a transmitter if you don't use the Y cable. Like I can't get the spoiler runs and the flaps and the ailerons to all work together if you have the Y cable. What I think I'd like to do is run these independent, but like I said, I don't know if it's possible yet. Oh, that one came off. Always watch stuff very carefully. Make sure your polarity is correct. Alright, let's see. Make sure that's lined up right. Let's see if it'll pop in there. Audible reset would be nice. I'd like a report on that when I said snap. However, it appears to be seated. Okay. I'll do the other side. You don't really have to mark those left and right. One of them says a flap on it if you need to keep track of whether it's a flap or an aileron, but you can reverse it, and in this situation you can just reverse it in the transmitter. I haven't given it much thought past that. Goodness gracious, this thing's huge. That was kind of the idea. wanted a big airplane, and because I never married, for example, I can have one and hang it from the ceiling in my living area. These wires are trying to tie themselves in the knot, so I'd rather that they not do that. I'm just double checking this because it looked a little bit odd back there. You gotta sort of flex it and then it'll go in. And I'm glad I don't have to push that hard on styrofoam. Yep, looks like that's got it. Yeah, that's a big one. I'm gonna have to back the camera up a little bit. Just because. There. I love it. So I hooked up the aileron and the flap to a Y cable for the left and ran it into one of the aileron channels, and then for the right and ran it into the other aileron channel. And it didn't work, and I don't know why. I'd like someone to explain that to me if they could. The flaps went down as soon as I turned things on, but I didn't have the flap switch down. And the ailerons were not coordinating with those or each other. It was just, it was a mess. So I unplugged it, and I'll just set up a new plane in Ethos. And I'll use the Y cable for the flap to go to the flap, and then the two aileron channels, which allow me to use spoilers and flaps with the ailerons. I'll figure out if I can make the flaps also a spoiler. I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Now, before I can change anything here, I need to know where I'm going to put everything. We'll start with the camera. I want it as far back as I can get it, and that will butt it up against this reinforcement for the leading edge of the wing and still give me enough room forward of it for an instrument panel of some kind. I got to figure out where to put the receiver. I think if I just shave this down a little bit level with that slot, I'll be able to push that receiver back in there. And the altimeter can just hang out back there. It doesn't weigh enough to bother anything at all. Got to figure out where to put the RFID and the battery. And I've been messing around with that. I made another piece of aluminum the same size as the base over there, just so that I could weigh it, even though it doesn't have the cutout. That's 2 ounces. I made this board to replace it with, leaving just a little bit more room in front of it for like the heads-up display, for example. That's a 1/2 ounce. That piece of aluminum is 2 ounces. So I'm about to swap that out. First thing I need to do in the cockpit area, though, is to remove the 2 straps and this Velcro sticky tape, which is absolutely perfect for mounting batteries, but for this purpose, it's in the way. Other thing I heard and read is that there's a carbon fiber spar in the center of this thing. And it's right there. It runs under this thing all the way back. Now the mount has holes right in the middle that would go through that spar. That is absolutely unacceptable. So it's a good thing I'm rebuilding the mount. I'll not put the screw holes right in the center. I'll have to put them on the sides, maybe use 4. We'll see how that develops. About the first thing you need to figure out when you're putting a camera in the airplane is what's your view going to be. If I put it right on the floor, well, I can't because of the, I can't cut a hole in that because of the spar. But on the other hand, the servo goes down far enough, it hits that board, I don't have to worry about the screws hitting that spar either. So you get a little good with the bad, but if I put it as low as it can go right there, your line of sight is, that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to see out of the airplane. So we're going to have to set this thing up like pretty high to get above the instrument panel. And the other issue that I've been having with it is, where do I put the battery? I can't get it in there the receiver's got to go there anyway. There's nowhere else to get it into the airplane. The speed control and the spar and everything is under the cockpit. I can't put it in the tail, and I'm not about to cut a hole in it. So it'll probably have to go underneath the camera unit. We'll put it all the way right up front. We're not very far ahead of the center of gravity, but I don't like that. One thing it might do, though, I'm going to pause and move the camera, is get me high enough where I can get above that and push this a little bit farther back, which would be quite helpful. I'll mess around with it and see how it goes, because I also don't want to look like I'm sitting on the back of the airplane. You don't fly it from there, you fly it from in here. So we got to make it look right. And that is why I don't have this thing in front of the camera. I'm going to check the settings on the 04 and see if it'll show up there. Otherwise, I want this thing where I can hear it because it's a battery alarm. And I figured out it'll fit right in there very nicely underneath that grate. So I'm going to go ahead and run this power extension wire through here. And just set that up right there. If you just scoot the speed control wires over a little bit, that thing will drop down in there like it was made to go in there. Just tighten up the screws. And since it's on an extension, it's just a matter of plugging it into the battery when you go fly with it. The receiver fit in there really nicely. It's just a press fit. The pan and tilt wires are here. The altimeter wire is here. I was going to tuck it in back there, but it doesn't work. And I've ordered a new one. It'll be here in about a week. I'll have to put it up front somewhere. Ailerons are 1 and 5. Flaps are 6 and 7. The flaps also act as a spoileron because they had 3 positions there. And all I had to do was change the linkage to put the center position in the center, and I've got spoileron and a flap. Ailerons only function as ailerons on this one. The replacement antennas came in today. There's 2 leads on that one, just like on the 03 air unit, and they'll go back about that far. I've got the T antenna and that one tucked inside. I'm tired of having the antennas ripped off. Besides, I got 5 of them between the 3 that are on that and the 2 that are on the air unit. There's more antennas on this thing than a police car. I really can't see putting the battery and the camera in the cockpit. It's going to make it so nose heavy that it'll weigh a ton by the time I get it balanced out. So I'm going to try to put a couple extensions on this and shove that receiver way back in there and just kind of let it hang out. And I'm going to see if I can get the battery to sit where it was, right above that wing, about as far back as I can get it. And I'll still have to add a little tail weight, but if I can do that, it'll cut it way down. I don't see anywhere I can get it underneath the wing. It would balance better there. I've been messing around this thing for a while now, and there's just nowhere to put that battery that's rearward of the center of gravity. I can't stick it on top. I can't stick it under the wing inside. I have a bore scope that'll look down a 22 caliber. It's a teeny little thing, and I'll punch the hole right there. I've since filled it. Put the bore scope down there just to see how things opened up inside, and it's just not going to happen. And interestingly enough, when I put it in the top, I thought that would open up down in there. It doesn't. There's just enough room for those antennas. It's an ideal place for them. So I'm going to be forced to put it in the cockpit, and it's just about the right thickness to put the camera at the right height. So that's kind of good. But I'm going to have to add a bunch of tail weight. Fortunately, the center of gravity would be right around here somewhere. I haven't measured or marked it or anything, but it's usually right in the top crown of the wing somewhere. And the tail is a long ways out and the camera is close to it. I had the opposite problem with the Titan and with that large jumbo styrofoam glider, whatever they called it. So hopefully we don't get too heavy. The altimeter, however, will fit in this little pocket very conveniently. I don't think it would have fit back up in there anyways. It's just not big enough in there. That looked like a really good place to put the RFID. That gimbal come in at 6 ounces, which is pretty good. And that would be 175 grams. I think the battery is like 5.5, so that's not bad. Okay, with the battery, it's, yeah, 325. And, 11.5 ounces. Yeah, 11.5 ounces. The servo in the gimbal is about as low as I can get it, considering that I have to have the battery sitting in here just about like that somewhere. I need to elevate this thing, so we'll put a block in here just a little bit thicker than the battery. That allows the wires to go under here. I just took some duct tape and taped it with another piece on the back side so it didn't stick any of the wires. We'll glue that down in there. And that'll give me a place to mount that screw. And that puts the camera at a really good height with enough room for the battery. I've got a block that's similar in the front, but I haven't accounted for the wires or trying to remove the battery. I'd like to try to get this thing to be removable if I can do that. Cut this little block out to fit right in there, and I let that slot so that I could get the battery balance connector through it. The camera module is sitting in the cockpit. There's a screw in the front of it, and then one in the back to hold it down. The battery is underneath it. The balance control lead comes out there, and you can plug it into this extension. That goes down to the battery level indicator and alarm underneath the front wheel. I'll also locate the altimeter up there. I've removed the RFID temporarily because I got to make that surface flat and strong enough for a piece of Velcro. The battery plug comes out here, goes to a Y connector. One end of it goes over here to connect to the speed control, and the other end of it controls the camera system with a switch. I put a better Y connector in it without the heat shrink connectors in it. Now all I've got to do is balance this thing and it's ready to go. Oh, one more thing before we get to balancing it is paint the cockpit. Make it look nice. Same thing with the gimbal and camera. I ended up putting the RFID on top of this transmitter protector shell thing and cleaned up the cockpit a little bit more by taking it up to the edge of the fuselage. I like it better that way. Right now, it's almost balanced. I'd like it a little bit more nose down, but I've only got 2 pieces of tungsten just hanging out on the elevator here. And that come out to, let's see, 2.6. That's not bad. Got a final flying weight of 3 pounds and about 5 ounces. And that'll be 1,505 grams. And the box says the flying weight would be around 1130, so that's not too bad. wanted to make an instrument panel to clean it up a little bit, hide the wires, the motor and whatnot, and I needed a little bit more weight in the nose. I'm going to go ahead and order the model aircraft instrument stickers or decals, whichever they are, from eBay, and make this look a little bit nicer. It's just held in with a couple of T-pins. It is August 29th, 2025. We've got the Arrows SZD 54 FPV. That's a mouthful. We're going to try to maiden flight this morning. It looked like it was tail heavy to me, but there's no damage. I had sense to cut the throttle before I hit the grass. I also noticed the battery had slid sideways, so I got hold of this foam squishy packing material and made a couple little blocks, stuck one of them on each side of that battery so that it doesn't move anymore. I also got about an ounce of tungsten. Let's see, that would be 0.92 ounces and 26 grams. We're gonna sit that with a hot glue gun right there, and hopefully we'll have a better center of gravity. We'll try again. Heavy, as I said earlier, and I didn't get the footage, but it was only about 5 seconds worth of flying. It landed in deep grass. That last flight, however, I was about high enough over the trees, except when I made that tight turn, the wing was long enough to dip down and catch. Luckily for me, it spun the thing 180 degrees around and landed in about 4.5 feet of grass and ferns. Only thing it did was it bound up the flap servo and burned that out. But that's easy enough to change. I've got more of those. Right now it's a little bit nose heavy, so I'm going to take a little chunk of tungsten out and then correct that problem. I will let you know exactly how many millimeters from the leading edge that center of gravity is when it's correct. It's about 52 millimeters from the front leading edge to the center of gravity.